Racist teacher keeps throwing away black girl's lunch. Parents are surprised when realizing why. Nia was only 8 years old when she began coming home from school hungry every afternoon. At first, her parents, Monique and Eric, assumed she was just burning more energy at recess. But it quickly became clear something more was going on. Despite sending Nia to school every morning with a large packed lunch, she returned each day famished, as though she hadn't eaten a bite. Concerned, Monique started slipping small treats into Nia's lunchbox, a piece of banana bread or some fruit snacks, hoping that a surprise goodie might entice her daughter to eat. It made no difference. Nia would arrive home in the evening, appetite raging, eager to devour an early dinner. The change alarmed her parents. Nia had always been bright and energetic. Now she seemed quieter, more withdrawn, as if something weighed heavily on her mind. Every time they asked about lunch, Nia brushed them off with a tired shrug or a guilty look. "I'm just not hungry at lunchtime," she would say, or, "I guess I forgot to eat." Monique and Eric weren't convinced. They pressed for details about Nia's day, how class was going, whether anything bothered her, but the little girl insisted everything was fine. The only clue that stood out was Nia's casual mention that she was not allowed to eat in the classroom. When asked who said that, she mumbled vaguely about Miss Aldridge, her teacher. It was unusual. Why would a teacher forbid a student from eating a lunch provided by her own parents, especially if the cafeteria was closed or if students were allowed to eat in the classroom during a study period? One afternoon, Monique received a call from a fellow parent. The woman mentioned that her child claimed Nia sometimes said she didn't have lunch at home. Monique's jaw dropped. That made no sense. They certainly weren't wealthy, but they lived comfortably, and she was always packed enough food for Nia every day. Why would her daughter say she had no lunch at all? Unnerved by this contradiction, Monique and Eric confronted Nia gently. She immediately froze up, tears brimming in her eyes. When they nudged her for answers, she burst into sobs and fled to her bedroom. That reaction was so unlike her. Her parents grew more certain that something at school, perhaps something in the classroom, was causing Nia deep stress. Desperate for clarity, Eric arranged a meeting with the principal. Nia sat beside them, looking small and anxious in the large office. The principal, Mr. Cunningham, tried to coax the truth out of the girl, but she clammed up again, refusing to elaborate. Tears returned at every hint of the subject, as though speaking about it was terrifying. In that tense meeting, one teacher from last year, Miss Bailey, mentioned a recent concern. Miss Aldridge had started substituting in Nia's homeroom. Miss Aldridge sometimes commented on kids' lunches, especially Nia. Miss Bailey confided that Miss Aldridge didn't hide her distaste for certain kinds of foreign or unusual foods and had even made inappropriate remarks about a smelly lunch that no one wanted in the room. Monique's cheeks heated with anger. She packed normal lunches, sandwiches, fruit, sometimes leftover beans and rice. Perfectly normal. But Miss Bailey hinted that Miss Aldridge's remarks often had a racial undertone, casually insulting ethnic foods in front of the class. The principal promised to look into it. He politely asked Miss Aldridge to join them. The moment the substitute teacher stepped into the office, her entire demeanor changed, as though she'd swallowed a bitter pill. She denied any wrongdoing, claimed she'd never told Nia she couldn't eat or that she had thrown Nia's food away. Her face betrayed nervousness, but her words were calm. Without direct evidence or a confession, the principal couldn't reprimand Miss Aldridge. "We need proof," he said regretfully, sending Monique, Eric, and Nia away with only the comfort of a promise. "I'll observe her classes more closely." The days that followed brought no improvement. Nia continued to come home on an empty stomach, refusing to explain why. Monique's heartbreak grew. She decided to watch from afar one morning, arriving at the school unannounced just before lunchtime. Sure enough, Miss Aldridge's class was in session. Monique couldn't enter the room without permission, so she lingered near the door, partially hidden behind the hallway corner. When the lunch bell rang, she caught a glimpse through the door's narrow window. Children rummaged for their lunches. Nia tentatively unzipped her pink lunch bag, pulling out a Tupperware with leftover chicken and vegetables. Then Miss Aldridge swooped in. Monique strained to see. Miss Aldridge frowned at Nia's container, the teacher's mouth moving sharply. Though Monique couldn't hear, the expression on Miss Aldridge's face was one of deep disapproval. Within moments, Miss Aldridge snatched the container from Nia's desk. Nia's eyes went wide in alarm. The teacher marched to the trash can, and Monique's heart lurched. She tossed it in. The container banged against the bin's rim. Monique saw Nia's face crumple. Meanwhile, Miss Aldridge said something that made the rest of the class go quiet. Some children stared at Nia sympathetically, others simply looked confused. Monique's hand flew to her mouth. She wanted to barge in that instant, but she knew the principal insisted on evidence. She whipped out her phone, discreetly hitting record, and angled the camera through the small glass pane. Her heart pounded in fury. That evening, Monique showed Eric the short video. His eyes flashed with anger. They'd always suspected Miss Aldridge was throwing away Nia's lunches, but to see it proven was infuriating. Why target Nia specifically? Why no other kids? Eric clenched his jaw. Is it because she's black, or because Miss Aldridge claims the food is foreign? At this point, they had enough proof for a strong complaint. Armed with the video, they went back to the principal, Mr. Cunningham. He was appalled. He summoned Miss Aldridge again. This time she looked cornered. She stammered some excuse about the lunches being a health hazard, but the principal pressed on. Why only Nia? Why not other children's lunches? What exactly is so hazardous about a normal meal? Miss Aldridge struggled, face reddening. She claimed that Nia's lunches smelled bad, that the classroom had to be kept clean and odor-free. She even mumbled something about how certain types of ethnic food might carry bacteria. Mr. Cunningham's jaw dropped. And Monique felt tears prick her eyes, torn between rage and heartbreak at the blatant prejudice. At that point, it was clear Miss Aldridge had singled out Nia's lunches because she viewed them, and by extension, Nia, as culturally unacceptable. Furious, the principal threatened disciplinary action, but Miss Aldridge bristled, retorting that she had done what she had to do to keep the environment pleasant. In the days that followed, Miss Aldridge was placed on administrative leave while the school district investigated. Meanwhile, rumors swirled among the staff and parents. Some teachers expressed disbelief that Miss Aldridge's prejudice was that blatant. Others admitted they had overheard Miss Aldridge's offhand remarks about certain cultures. What truly shocked Nia's parents was learning the hidden dimension behind Miss Aldridge's so-called rules. Another parent, Miss Carter, approached them with a sheepish confession. I discovered Miss Aldridge used to be strict with my daughter's lunches too, though never to this extent. She's got a history. The district's investigation uncovered that Miss Aldridge had repeatedly written notes to families complaining about inappropriate food. Many were families of color or immigrants. Some gave in to the teacher's demands, adjusting their children's lunches to avoid conflict. But Nia's family, unaware of the teacher's prejudices, never changed their daughter's lunches. That made an even bigger target. When Miss Aldridge was forced to answer official questions, her deeper motive came to light. She believed she was saving the classroom environment from foreign odors, and insisted she wasn't being racist, just cautious about weird foods. The investigators saw right through that rationalization. Her repeat behavior against students of certain backgrounds told the real story. Hearing the final results of the inquiry was a mixture of relief and sorrow for Monique and Eric. They learned Miss Aldridge's prejudice was far more entrenched than anyone realized. She had singled out multiple children in the past, discarding their lunches under the guise of cleanliness. But none of those incidents had been captured on video. Only Nia's case provided indisputable proof. The district terminated Miss Aldridge's contract. She left in disgrace, protesting bitterly that she was misunderstood. Monique and Eric felt relieved that Nia no longer had to endure such treatment, yet they also grieved the emotional toll on their sweet daughter. Nia had spent weeks feeling worthless, humiliated each time her lunch was thrown away in front of classmates. The shame and confusion lingered. Determined to help Nia heal, her parents enrolled her in sessions with the school counselor. They showered her with reassurance and determined to help Nia heal, her parents enrolled her in sessions with the school counselor. They showered her with reassurance at home, explaining that no adult should ever treat her differently because of her race or background. The counselor worked on rebuilding Nia's confidence, helping her see that Miss Aldridge's behavior reflected the teacher's ignorance, not Nia's worth. Over time, Nia's spark returned. She started eating lunches at school again, this time under the watchful, empathetic eye of a new homeroom teacher, Miss Yang, who made sure every student felt safe and included. Nia's classmates rallied around her, offering support and friendship. They recognized how unfairly Nia had been singled out, and the class environment softened. Eventually, the day came when Nia was excited to show off a homemade lunch of her mother's famous jambalaya. She carried it proudly, no longer anxious that someone might throw it away. Miss Yang encouraged the class to embrace the variety of food students brought, even inviting them to share the stories behind their meals. An experience that turned lunchtime into a cultural celebration rather than a moment of dread. Monique and Eric stayed vigilant but were grateful to see Nia smiling again. They quietly spread the word among other parents. If a teacher's behavior seems off, speak up, gather evidence, and protect your child. Racism can hide behind small acts, even if disguised as concern. Looking back, Nia's parents felt a sense of pride in how they advocated for their daughter. They had faced an ugly situation no parent wants to imagine: a teacher targeting their child because of her race, humiliating her day after day. Though the ordeal shook them deeply, it ultimately affirmed the power of parental love, community support, and speaking truth. Nia's story spread through the school district, prompting new training about cultural sensitivity and student rights. Teachers were reminded that children's lunches and their heritage must be respected. And although Miss Aldridge left under a cloud, the district as a whole took a necessary step forward, striving to ensure no child would endure that sort of discrimination again. One Sunday evening, Nia sat in the kitchen beside her mother, helping pack Monday's lunch: sweet cornbread, fruit, and a small container of spiced beans and greens, recipes passed down from her grandmother. "I like my lunch," Nia declared with a bright smile. "Everyone else likes it too now." And Monique brushed a gentle hand over her daughter's curls. "Good, good," she said softly, eyes shining with quiet relief. "That's how it should be, baby. Don't ever let anyone take that away from you again." And with that, Nia went to bed that night, ready for school, no longer dreading lunchtime, but embracing it, confident, proud, and hungry for a bright future.